The Soviet Union finished first in the gold medal count at 6 out of 9 Summer Olympics. They produced champions in almost every sport you can think of, and most people explain that with 2 words: physical training. But the Soviets themselves said something different. Their top sports psychologist, a man named Avsinti Puni, built a 5-rule system that every elite Soviet athlete had to follow before they ever competed. He called it Boyavia Gotovnost, readiness to fight. These 5 rules had nothing to do with how fast you could run or how much you could lift. They were entirely mental. And the interesting part is, they apply to everything, not just sports. I'm going to break down all 5 and show you exactly how to use each one starting today. Plus, I'm going to give you a bonus method from Soviet visualization research that most people get completely wrong. Here's the thing. Most people think mental toughness is something you either have or you don't. You're either born with nerves of steel or you spend your life choking under pressure. The Soviets rejected that idea completely. They treated the mind the same way they treated the body. You train it, systematically, with specific methods and specific progressions. Puni's system started broad, with general psychological skills, and then narrowed to sport-specific preparation. The same structure you use in physical periodization, they applied to the mind. The big question is, what were those 5 rules? How did Soviet coaches actually apply them? And how do you use them when you've never competed in anything? Puni founded the first sports psychology department in the Soviet Union in 1946 at the Leskaft Institute in Leningrad. He spent the next 4 decades training Olympic teams. He wasn't a motivational speaker, he was a researcher. He studied what separated athletes who performed well under pressure from those who collapsed. And he identified 5 components that showed up every single time. Not 4, not 6, 5. He called them the 5 decrees of Boyavia Gotovnost. Rule 1, realistic self-confidence. Puni didn't say, believe in yourself. That's a poster on a classroom wall. He said something more specific and more useful. He said, have confidence that is based on evidence from your own preparation. Not hope, not hype, evidence. If you've done the work, you can trust the work. If you haven't done the work, no amount of positive thinking will save you. Think about it like this. There's a difference between a student who walks into an exam thinking, I'll probably do fine, because they studied for 3 weeks, and a student who thinks, I'll probably do fine, because they're in denial. One of those is realistic confidence. The other is a disaster waiting to happen. Puni's athletes kept detailed training logs. They could look back and see exactly what they'd done. That's where their confidence came from. Not from a feeling, from a record. The psychologist Albert Bandura later confirmed this with decades of research. He found that the single strongest source of self-confidence, which he called self-efficacy, is mastery experiences. In plain language, you did it before, so you believe you can do it again. Not because someone told you, because you have proof. Here's what this means for you. Tonight, take 5 minutes and write down 3 things you've already accomplished that required effort. They don't have to be big. Maybe you finished a difficult course. Maybe you stuck with a habit for a month. Maybe you handled a tough conversation without losing your composure. Write them down. Read them. This is your evidence file. And every time you doubt yourself before something hard, you're going to open this file instead of looking for motivation on the internet. You're going to add to it every week. 1 new entry. It takes 2 minutes. That's rule 1. I know what you're thinking. Write down my accomplishments? That's a journal exercise from 6th grade. That's you right now. But here's the difference. This isn't about feeling good. This is about building a reference library your brain can pull from under pressure. Soviet athletes didn't freestyle their confidence, they engineered it, and the raw material was evidence, not emotions. And this brings us to the most important part. Rule 2, uncompromising effort to the end. Puni observed that adversity usually produces quitting, not always dramatic quitting, quiet quitting, easing off when things get uncomfortable, reducing effort by 10% when no one's watching. He noticed that this pattern, once it starts, becomes a habit, and habits are hard to break. So he trained the opposite habit. You finish what you start with the same intensity you began with, every time. Think about it like this. Your brain is always watching what you do. Every time you ease off early, you're programming the response. When it gets hard, slow down. Every time you push through to the end, you're programming a different response. When it gets hard, maintain. Puni treated this like a muscle. You train it with small, daily repetitions until it becomes automatic. For you, this means one simple practice. Every day for the next 2 weeks, pick one task and finish it completely before you start anything else. Not almost finish, completely. If you're reading a chapter, read to the last page. If you're working on a project for 30 minutes, work the full 30. No checking your phone at minute 22. No close enough at minute 27. The full 30. This sounds obvious, but track it and you'll realize how often you stop at 80%. The Soviets considered this the most trainable of all 5 rules because it only requires one decision: I finish. Now, you might think, I already pushed through hard things. Maybe you do, but Puni's point wasn't about the big moments. It was about the small ones. The Tuesday afternoon when you're tired and nobody cares. That's where the habit gets built or broken. But this was only half of the picture, because effort without control is just chaos. And that brings us to Rule 3, optimal emotional arousal. This is where the Soviets were ahead of almost everyone. Puni understood that peak performance doesn't happen when you're the most fired up, and it doesn't happen when you're the most calm. It happens in a specific emotional zone that's different for every person and every task. A Russian sports psychologist named Yuri Hanin took this further in the 1970s with research on Soviet Olympic athletes. He developed what he called the Individual Zones of Optimal Functioning, or IZOF. Here's the key finding. Some athletes perform best when they were slightly anxious. Others perform best when they were almost relaxed. There was no universal right level of intensity, but every athlete had a zone, and when they were outside that zone, in either direction, performance dropped. Think about it like this. Imagine a radio dial. Too far left, you're bored and unfocused. Too far right, you're tense and overthinking. Your best work happens somewhere in the middle, but your middle isn't the same as someone else's middle. Some people need more energy, more urgency. Others need more calm, more space. Here's what this means for you. For the next week, after every important task, meeting, conversation, or session, rate your energy level from 1 to 10. 1 being, I was half asleep. 10 being, my heart was racing. Then rate your performance from 1 to 10. After 7 days, look at where your best performances happened. You'll probably see a pattern. Maybe your best work happens at a 6. Maybe it happens at a 4. That number is your zone. Once you know it, you can start adjusting. If you're too low, you take a short walk, splash cold water on your face, put on something with tempo. If you're too high, you do the breathing formula from the Filatov system. 4 sentences, 90 seconds. You're dialing yourself into your zone. I know this is a lot to process. If you need to come back and rewatch this section, do it. Grab a pen and take notes. The investment is worth it. Okay, so you've got confidence based on evidence, effort that doesn't fade, and emotional control. But what about when the pressure comes from the outside? Rule 4, high tolerance for stress and distraction. Puni noticed that under stress, athletes' attention would narrow onto the threat. A wrestler thinking about the opponent's strength instead of their own game plan. A gymnast hearing the crowd instead of feeling their routine. When your attention locks onto the stressor, everything else falls apart. You stop processing useful information. Your reaction time slows. You start trying to consciously control movements that should be automatic. Think about it like this. When you're anxious before a presentation, what happens? You start thinking about what could go wrong. Your brain burns energy on scenarios that haven't happened yet, and that energy isn't available for the actual task. You get to the podium and your mind is running 5 programs at once, none of them useful. The Soviet solution was specific. They built tolerance by exposing athletes to controlled doses of stress during training, starting small and increasing over time. Soviet coaches would add distractions to training on purpose. Noise, audience, time pressure, unexpected rule changes. Athletes learned to perform despite the chaos, not in the absence of it. For you, this translates to something practical. If you have a big presentation next week, practice it first in a quiet room alone. Then practice with one person watching. then with background noise, then standing up instead of sitting. Each step adds a small stressor. By the time you're in the real situation, your brain has already dealt with worse. It sounds almost too simple to work, but this is exactly how the Soviet system functioned. Small, progressive doses of discomfort that build capacity over time. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Rule 5, self-control. I covered this in a previous video, but here's the short version as Puni defined it. Self-control is the ability to consciously direct your own actions, thoughts, and emotions using deliberate internal commands. You're not reacting to the moment, you're directing the moment. Puni's colleague Arkady Filatov built this into a full system called emotional volitional training. Athletes learn specific verbal formulas they would say to themselves at specific moments. Relaxation formulas before sleep, activation formulas before competition, self-order formulas in the moment of pressure. Always short, always present tense, always about what you do, not what you avoid. For you, the simplest version of this is one formula. Pick one area where you lose control. Write a 5 to 8 word command in present tense. I start immediately. I stay calm and focused. I speak slowly and clearly. Say it 5 times tonight, out loud. Then use it silently tomorrow at the moment of pressure. One formula, 1 week. That's how it begins. Now, I saved the most interesting part for last, the bonus. In his 1984 book, Peak Performance, writer Charles Garfield described visiting Soviet training facilities and learning about an experiment where athletes were divided into groups with different ratios of physical to mental training. One group trained physically 100% of the time. Another group spent 75% of their time on mental rehearsal and only 25% on physical training. According to Garfield, the group with the highest proportion of mental training performed the best. Now, this story has been repeated widely, but the original Soviet data behind it was never published as a peer-reviewed study. So take the exact numbers with some caution. But the core principle behind it, multisensory visualization, has been confirmed independently many times since. A 2020 meta-analysis found that imagery interventions significantly enhanced motor performance across dozens of studies. This isn't speculation. The method works. The question is how you use it. Here's what the Soviets actually did that was different from what most people think of as visualization. They didn't just picture success. They engaged every sense. You see the environment, you hear the sounds, you feel the temperature on your skin, the ground under your feet, the weight in your hands. You feel the emotion. Not watching yourself from the outside like a movie, experiencing it from the inside as if it's happening right now. For you, here's exactly what you do. Tonight, lie down somewhere quiet. Close your eyes. Pick one specific situation you're facing this week where you need to perform well. Maybe it's a conversation, a presentation, an exam, a meeting. Now, step into it. See the room from your own eyes. Hear the background sounds. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel the chair or the podium or whatever's in front of you. Now, run the scenario the way you want it to go. See yourself doing it well. Not perfectly, well. Confident posture, clear voice, calm decisions. Run this scene for exactly 3 minutes. Time it. Your brain starts to drift after about 3 minutes, so that's the window. Do it every night this week before the relaxation formulas. By the 3rd day, the scene will feel familiar, and when the real moment comes, your brain will treat it like something it's already done. During your 3-minute visualization tonight, picture yourself pressing that subscribe button. Really see it. Hear the click. Feel the satisfaction. That counts as your practice. So let me put the whole system together. Rule 1. Tonight, write your evidence file. 3 accomplishments, 2 minutes. Rule 2. Tomorrow, pick one task and finish it completely. No easing off. Rule 3. After every important task this week, rate your energy and your performance. Find your zone by day 7. Rule 4. Add one controlled stressor to your next practice or preparation session. Rule 5. Write one self-order formula tonight and start using it tomorrow. And the bonus? 3 minutes of multisensory visualization before bed. That's the system Puni built over 4 decades of working with Olympic athletes. It's not complicated, it's specific, and it's designed so you can start tonight. Try Rule 1 tonight, write those 3 accomplishments, and tell me in the comments what you came up with. I want to read them. The Soviets also had a full system for building self-control from zero, using auto-suggestion formulas from Filatov's emotional volitional training program. Click the video on the screen to learn exactly how it works. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.